Welcome to the NGO Power Talks brought to you by African NGOs and Hexa Media Africa. We'll be started in a very short few. Just give us a few minutes and we'll get started. Let's just get some more people in before we start up the webinar. Thank you. The sound isn't audible because we haven't started yet. So please give us a few minutes, okay? Thank you. All right. 2 minutes past 12, and there are already over 100 of you joining us. Please, if you can hear me, drop in the chat, put up your emojis, something. Let me know you can hear me and you can see me. Just drop a message in the chat. You can hear me, or just do a thumbs up with the emoji so I know you can hear me and you can see me. Great. I see your emojis coming in. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, wonderful. Wonderful. Great to have you all here. 100 people in 3 minutes. That's really amazing. Really, really amazing. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Let me know if you can see my screen. Welcome again. My name is Emanuela Imo, and I am the founder and CEO here at Hexa Media. I am going to be moderating this session with you, or for you. But before we get started, let's do a few introductions. Please get to meet a few people in about 2 minutes. Get to meet someone. Tell us, what is your name? What country are you joining us from? The name of your organization and the role at your organization. So my name is Emanuela. I'm from Nigeria, the founder and CEO of Hexa Media Africa. Yes, that's my name and a quick introduction about me. So please do the same. Introduce yourself in the chat. Let's get to meet each other while we're waiting for some more people to join us. Tell us your name, where you're joining us from, and your role at your organization. Let's get started. I'm looking in the chat. I want to see everyone that is joining us at the moment. Okay, so I'm in the chat. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. Oh, yes. Margaret from South Africa. Welcome. How is South Africa today? I see Ethiopia, South Africa, Namibia, Cape Town. I see Zimbabwe. Where are my Nigerian people? I see Botswana. Wonderful. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I see Malawi. Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, my Nigerian brethren are here. Nice to have you people. I see Ghana. I see Nairobi. How is Nairobi today? Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome from all across Africa. Really amazing to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us again. Really great to have everyone from across the continent in one space. I'm super excited for today's conversation. Please keep it coming. Keep it coming. Let's know where you're joining us from. I'm looking in the chat still. Yes, Zimbabwe, Nairobi, Malawi, Ghana. How is Ghana today? Kenya. Welcome, welcome everyone. If you can't hear us, please try checking your connection. Zambia, welcome, welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Someone from the UK is also here. Great, great to have you on. Thank you so much all for joining us. Thank you for joining. Without wasting so much time, I'm going to go straight up into why we're here today. So yes, we've introduced ourselves. Now, who are we, or what is the NGO Power Talk? The NGO Power Talk is hosted by Hexamedia Africa and African NGOs, like I said before, and it is a dynamic webinar series that was created specifically to equip nonprofit leaders across the continent with strategies and resources to enhance their impact. And our mission is simple: to help you grow at every level and stage you are through all of the webinar series that we have. And if this is not your first time of joining us, Hexamedia and African NGOs, you would know that we started this webinar series since February, and we've had over 1,000 participants join this webinar series since February. February, the first event was Reimagining African NGOs from Survival to Sustainability, and that webinar was really amazing, looking at more sustainable ways in which we could run our organizations as a result of the funding cuts that happened earlier this year. And in April, we had the AI for Impact, boosting your NGOs outreach and fundraising. And that was another amazing, amazing session that we had. Today, we are having to talk about something that is close to everyone's heart. And you can see that from the amount of people who are already here on the call. We had 1,200 registrations as at the last time we checked. That is to show you the importance of this session today. And we're super excited to host all of you here to talk about crowdfunding and African NGOs, the challenges, the opportunities that are available. And for all the organizations here who have been using crowdfunding as a means of financing their organization, you would know that it has evolved from a niche-based financing method to the cornerstone of, the impact sector, global philanthropy, and project funding. In 2024 alone, the global crowdfunding market reached an estimated $18.4 billion. That is a whole lot. And the projections for the future is expected that there's going to be a double-digit growth, over the next decade. However, despite this, surge, only about 22.4% of campaigns meet their funding goals. And I'm sure you're here today. You must have experienced that. You set up a campaign and, you didn't hit the goal that you initially set out to meet. And that is because a lot of organizations are either not able to, plan their campaigns well or put together a very strong campaign to enable them hit their target. And so platforms like Kickstarter have channeled more than $850 million from nearly 4.9 million backers into 50,000 successful projects since 2009. And this is a proof that if you are able to execute a crowdfunding campaign properly, you can get access to unlimited resources and a vibrant community that would support the work that you do. For African NGOs, particularly the smaller sized organizations like you that are here on this call, crowdfunding is a powerful avenue to help diversify income, raise visibility, and also engage a broad base of individual donors. However, you still face many challenges, many hurdles, and that is the reason we are here today to see how we can actually help you navigate through some of these hurdles, answer questions that you may have had, and see how we can help you stand out, right, amidst the crowded online landscape. And so what are the objectives of today's webinar? First, we want to explore the potential of crowdfunding as a viable fundraising mechanism for African NGOs. We're also going to be looking at how you can design, launch, and manage effective crowdfunding campaigns with the help of experts that we already have here. We've brought the best from the best organizations right here today for our webinar. We're also going to be exploring the various types of crowdfunding platforms that serve African NGOs and you can use, and also the challenges, because with every good thing, there is always a challenge. But we're not just here to talk about the challenges, we're here to talk about how you can actually mitigate these challenges and get around them. So now that you know why we're here, here is an overview of the program of today. What should you expect? First, the welcome and overview, which I've already given, an introduction to the session, which will be given by Mr. David, and an amazing panel session, which I'm already super excited and pumped up for. And you would also have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you want, as time permits us, and then we would wrap up and close. So we have a very short window to get all of this done, and I'm hoping that we're able to really get deep into this conversation today. Before we get started with the conversation, meet the webinar host, David Bernard, development consultant and the founder of African NGOs, and myself, a comms consultant and the CEO here at Hexamedia. We're going to be moderating this session today and having a splendid time with you. Meet African NGOs. African NGOs is an online community and X account, Twitter, dedicated to sharing news and resources related to African NGOs, managed by David Bernard, a seasoned African philanthropy and NGO consultant with over 25 years of experience. African NGOs support NGO leaders, donors, and stakeholders while promoting the positive impact of African NGOs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not already following African NGOs on X, or David Bernard on LinkedIn, make sure you go right now to X, which is Twitter, and LinkedIn, type David Bernard or type African NGOs and give them a follow. Or you can visit the website www.africanngos.org to read through some of the amazing publications and learn more about the work that is being done there. And about Hexamedia. Hexamedia Africa is a full-service digital media agency that helps African NGOs and impact-driven businesses leverage tech, media, and communications for growth and impact. And as usual, you can read more about the work that we do on our website, www.hexamedia.africa. If you are not following us yet on social media, all of you here, please go on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Facebook. Give us a follow. The name is the same, Hexamedia Africa. You can also check the links in the chat to go directly to follow us on social media platforms. So, a few housekeeping rules just before we get started. This is an important conversation that I would not want you to miss out on anything that is being said. And so it is great that you shut out all distractions. If you are in a noisy place that is going to distract you, maybe you're at work or something, that's understandable, but try to shut out all distractions so you are able to get the important bits of what our experts are going to share today. Also, there is a chat function. Please make sure you're using that to communicate. Only our panelists and the hosts would have access to unmute their mics. All participants won't be able to unmute your mic. So use the chat function. Also ask your questions using the question box or the chat box, right? So if you do not have access to the question box, please feel free to use the chat box. At the end of the session, we will pick out the questions, and some of the questions you have already shared with us, we're going to pick from there and, respond to your pressing questions. This webinar will be recorded, so please do not worry about having to miss out on some information or the other. We'll definitely share this with you if you are registered. So if you have someone who is supposed to be here, please make sure that you share the registration link with them so they are able to get access to the replay when we have it published. And finally, before you leave this session, make sure you connect with someone, because partnerships, collaborations is what will take you to the next phase of what you do with your organization. And without further ado, I'm going to stop talking and hand over to Mr. David to give us a session introduction and launch us quickly into the panel session for today. Mr. David, are you ready for us?
Thank you, Manuela. Greetings to everyone from South Africa. Thank you for the introductory comments and the background information about today's event. So let's kind of get straight into today's discussion: crowdfunding and African NGOs, challenges and opportunities. I want first of all to echo Emanuela's comments regarding the overwhelming interest in today's event, and thank everyone for joining us today. We've had more than 1,200 registrations, and even if not everyone make it today through the recording and through the write-ups after the event, I hope the rich experiences of today we would be able to share widely. Crowdfunding is not a new fundraising strategy or tool, and Africa has no shortage of crowdfunding platforms, success stories, and related experiences. So if we think about that, why then this overwhelming interest in today's event and the crowdfunding topic? There are probably many reasons for this interest, but at the heart of everything is probably the funding challenges facing many NGOs on the continent, or the search for new funding avenues or replace or complement their existing funding sources. The funding landscape for African NGOs has been in flux since the COVID pandemic a few years back, and the US government funding cuts since early this year have added to the funding challenges confronting many African NGOs. And just as a heads up, African NGOs was recently involved in a survey about a research project about the impact of the funding cuts, and we'll release that report in the coming weeks. So African NGOs therefore face mounting pressure to diversify the income sources and enhance their financial resilience. The funding landscape is rapidly changing. Traditional donor funding becomes less predictable, and competition for limited resources intensify. As Emanuela highlighted in her opening comments, crowdfunding is a mechanism that enables African NGOs, or NGOs in general, to mobilize resources directly from individuals and communities, be it it's local or global, while building broader awareness of their work. However, many African NGOs still face severe knowledge and expertise, lack the knowledge and expertise needed to fully leverage the potential of crowdfunding in their work. Linked to the objectives of today's event, and link also to the wide interest in the event, we received hundreds of questions from participants during the registration process about various aspects of crowdfunding. I would say 4 out of 5 people highlighted at least one question, in many cases 2 or 3 questions, as part of the registration process. Obviously, we can't deal with all the questions, even if we group them. However, a few issues that align with our objectives for today stand out, and we'll focus on these today. In a nutshell, People are interested in better understanding what crowdfunding entails, the potential of crowdfunding as a viable fundraising tool and strategy, the challenges associated with crowdfunding, and lastly, I think there's a general interest just in terms of practical advice that people can benefit from. I think it's also clear, and I think it's important to acknowledge upfront, that there's much diversity in understanding or even misunderstanding of and experiences with crowdfunding amongst participants, ranging from no experience but significant interest in the potential of crowdfunding on the one side, to experienced users looking for ways to improve the impact of their crowdfunding efforts. Again, this is the challenge for our panelists today, but we'll try and find a middle ground through those different levels of expertise or past experience. Our discussion will mainly focus on the issues that I've just highlighted, and we hope to draw on our panelists' knowledge and experience and the platforms that they represent. So let me introduce our panelists for today's discussion. We are very fortunate to have 4 people as our panelists with significant crowdfunding experience and expertise, all representing crowdfunding platforms supporting African NGOs and in some cases on a more broader global level. Our first panelist is Rachel Smith. She leads global programs at GlobalGiving, supporting a global community of more than 6,000 vetted NGOs to raise funding online and access funding through flexible grants. GlobalGiving is one of the leading international platforms supporting NGOs globally, including African NGOs. And amongst other things, Rachel is also the board chair of Accountable Now. Welcome, Rachel. Our second panelist is Michael Okinyi, the head of sales and partnerships at M-Changa, one of Africa's leading crowdfunding platforms supporting African NGOs. Based in Kenya, Michael is an experienced fundraising and partnership development professional and has played a pivotal role in M-Changa's growth in recent years. Thirdly is Catherine de Plooy, the co-founder and chief growth officer of BackaBuddy. BackaBuddy is South Africa's leading crowdfunding platform for social impact. Over the past 10 years, Catherine has been instrumental in helping raise 450 million rand for life-changing campaigns across healthcare, education, and community development. Last but not least, our fourth panelist is Jerry Sam. Jerry is the executive director of Penplusbytes, a civic tech organization based in Ghana. He is a trained journalist and governance specialist with significant experience driving positive change through new media innovations and digital advocacy. One of Penplusbytes initiatives is the Yensumibi crowdfunding platform, which supports NGOs in Ghana. As part of our first round of questions, I will request that the panelists also briefly introduce and describe the platforms they represent. This will help everyone better understand the different crowdfunding platform options and their relevance to African NGOs. So welcome once again to our panelists, and thank you very much for making time to share your knowledge and expertise with us today. So to kickstart our discussion, I will ask Rachel to tell us more about GlobalGiving, and to ensure we all have a common understanding of crowdfunding, to provide a brief overview of what crowdfunding entails, including different forms and types of crowdfunding. So Rachel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'll look to David to give me a wave. But yeah, it's fantastic to be here with you all. My name is Rachel Smith. I have been working with GlobalGiving now for over 15 years. And I was reflecting on that coming into this conversation and realizing that probably makes me deeply committed to the crowdfunding concept at this point. So to let you know about GlobalGiving, if it's not a crowdfunding platform that you have heard of before, GlobalGiving was established in 2002. So we're coming up to more than nearly 25 years. And we really didn't call ourselves a crowdfunding platform back then. It was a concept and a term that really came in probably more like 15 years ago. But we started out as a very early kind of form of crowdfunding, a website, globalgiving.org, if you want to check us out. And it was about connecting resources to local leaders to fund their initiatives. It was really trying to kind of look at significantly shifting the paradigm of how resources flow through the international aid system by really centering community leadership. So I mean, fast forward today, I'm sure locally led development isn't a concept you haven't heard of. And so I think I place us sort of in that kind of early phase of thinking about how to resource community led change. So we do offer crowdfunding platform. Of course, that is our kind of cornerstone of what Global Giving does, but we've expanded over the years to also offer flexible grants for community organisations globally. We have a global focus, as the name suggests. So in 175 countries plus, we're supporting more than 40,000 projects and currently have active around 6,000 plus vetted active nonprofits working with us. So we've been around a while, but over that time, we've actually just hit just over $1 billion of funding that we have facilitated as an intermediary, providing crowdfunding as a mechanism to mobilize funds and also delivering and supporting grant programs. We've been able to support 2 million donors to give. And the other element of the way Global Giving works is we also work with institutions. So we'll work with companies, private sector companies. Many of them are multinational. So they may have headquarters in the US or the UK or another country, but they tend to work globally. So they have an interest in spreading their philanthropic impact in a global way. And so we often find ourselves in strategic partnership with those kinds of organizations to help them move their philanthropic funds out into the world. So the mission really for Global Giving is very much about centering organizations like yours, those organizations that are being led often very much rooted geographically in the countries or the communities even that they're serving, and helping organizations, nonprofits, to equip them with the platform, which obviously is about increasing visibility, making connections through communication tools, and inspiring giving generally. So we'll get into this a little bit more in a minute about how to be successful with crowdfunding. Of course, Global Giving has a brand and we do make connections with donors, but really we see globalgiving.org as a platform from which you can start to build out your crowd. The other thing I'll say about Global Giving is that we are a non-profit organisation. I won't get into this in loads of detail, but crowdfunding platforms now, there is a proliferation. You will find many in your national context, lots globally. They're actually all registered slightly differently. So some are for-profit businesses, some are kind of social businesses, and some are like pure non-profits. And Global Giving is a non-profit organisation, so we don't generate any profit from the activities and the work we do, and we support non-profits predominantly. We have had a few programs where we've worked with social businesses or individual change makers, but for the most part, our partners that are delivering work and that are receiving funds and that are crowdfunding are not for profit. So I'll move now, if that's okay, David, to the question you just posed, which is really to offer the highest level overview of different kinds of crowdfunding. So in describing Global Giving just then about how we work and who we work with, I would describe Global Giving's type of crowdfunding as donation-based crowdfunding. So people are making contributions through Global Giving to specific projects, and they're doing so as a charitable gift. So they're not receiving anything in return. Perhaps they hope to receive an update and an understanding about how their money was used, but they're not receiving anything physical or digital that benefits them in return. The other benefit often with non-profit crowdfunding platforms, or those that have an arrangement for this, is that if there are any tax breaks or tax efficiencies for charities in country, we're able to facilitate those in some jurisdictions. So GlobalGiving is registered and has many contributions, donations coming from the US, from the UK, and in both those places we can facilitate tax deductible giving for the donors, which is actually quite an incentive at times for individuals who want to give. And so that may be the case with other platforms across the continent too. So I've mentioned donation-based crowdfunding and this focus on typically charitable projects or campaigns. The second is not totally dissimilar, but it recenters us towards like an individual wanting to fundraise or a fundraiser. And so I would describe this as peer-to-peer crowdfunding. It's still about many small donations, so small or large donations coming from a crowd of people giving to a specific focused effort. In this case, it is through the mechanism of a fundraiser. So it could be, you know, my brother, he's going to run a marathon. He wants to run that marathon and generate some funding for his favorite cause. And he chooses to use a platform, a crowdfunding platform, or a peer-to-peer fundraising platform to do that. And he is using his network to bring funding through that page on the website to that cause. So that's peer-to-peer crowdfunding. The other crowdfunding type that I think is has some relevance to the nonprofit space is something called reward-based crowdfunding. And reward-based crowdfunding, in this case, it's not always considered charitable donations, but it is quite a motivating proposition. So the idea here is that you're asking people to donate to a particular project, but they are actually going to get something in return. And so often with reward-based crowdfunding, it is offering people at different tiers. You know, if you give $10, you'll get a small pen, or if you give $1,000, you'll get an opportunity to meet someone from the organization. So they don't have to all be physical, but they are about the contributor getting something in return. Just to round us out, and I'll pass back to you, David, there are a couple of other crowdfunding types that are probably not relevant, but I'll just mention them anyway. One is equity-based crowdfunding. This is not really suitable for not-for-profit organizations that don't have financial kind of returns, but it can work for social businesses. And then debt-based crowdfunding, or crowd lending, is another way of saying it, which focuses a little bit more on, it focuses on a contribution from a donor being used as a loan. So the most globally known platform, at least that I know, is called Kiva, K-I-V-A, and that is about connecting individual business owners to resources, and they receive it as a loan and then they pay it back into the kind of Kiva platform. So there's obviously a lot of different types of crowdfunding, and the considerations about which one you choose is going to come down to where is your crowd, what kind of currencies and payment methods are you looking to support? Is language a consideration for you? What do you want to raise money for? And does it matter to your donors if your organization has been validated or vetted in some way? So those are just some of the initial thoughts or questions I'd have that I would offer to you to think about as you're thinking about different kinds of crowdfunding. But over to you, David. Hopefully that wasn't too verbose, but gives a good overview, hopefully, of different kinds of crowdfunding.
No, thank you very much, Rachel. I think I think it's an important starting point to just for people to understand different platforms, but also different crowdfunding approaches. Probably there would be a strong interest in kind of, say, donation-based or donation-based crowdfunding, because that kind of speaks to the organizational fundraising approach, but obviously there might be wider interest. So I want to come back to some of the things that you've just raised when we talk about the potential and the opportunities linked to crowdfunding. But before that, let me shift to Catherine, Michael, and Jerry. So also give you an opportunity to briefly introduce the platforms that you represent. But in doing so, please share also with us a few perspectives on the funding challenges that you observe in your specific locations as you speak to or engage with different NGOs, and why African NGOs should consider, if they haven't, crowdfunding as part of their fundraising and resource mobilization strategies. And almost maybe as a last thought in giving us that feedback, maybe just give us also some insight if you have seen any renewed interest in crowdfunding and your platform specifically over the past few months, specifically giving all the changes in the funding and the fundraising environment in recent months. So Catherine, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Michael and Jerry.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And Rachel, great to meet you and everybody here on the call. It's always so funny to meet, online, and you so desperately want to see people's faces and engage and have a conversation. But my name is Catherine, and I'm co-founder here at BackaBuddy. We're a South African-based non-profit organization, crowdfunding platform. And we have been around since 2010. And our organization has, if I'm honest with you, we've kind of pivoted over the years as things have changed. I remember, way in the beginning when we launched, I used to get incredibly excited when we would raise, 50,000 Rand a month. And I mean, in dollars terms, it's not even it's $500 or $5,000. And I would get exceptionally excited about it. Look what's been achieved for South African NGOs in crowdfunding. And we are now at a stage where, I mean, that number is just, it's crazy. We're reaching about 20 million Rand a month for various non-profit organizations across South Africa. Crowdfunding is continuing to grow. And particularly, as you mentioned earlier, David, around what's happening in the world at the moment with funding and funding restrictions, I passionately believe, as Rachel in the crowdfunding space, but I really believe in the time for crowdfunding is now, specifically in terms of building individual giving, repeat giving campaigns, building up those individual bases of support through a strategic approach so that they remain loyal to you and continue to support your organization. So we've actually recently partnered with a debit order functionality here in South Africa, debiting straight from check account. So we've got credit card, we've got check account, we've got PayPal and various other methods, predominantly at the moment for the South African market, but a strong focus on helping NGOs to build those repeat giving campaigns. We're running cohorts throughout the year on how to do it. It's a 6-week cohort with trainings on, if you want to build a recurring giving campaign for your nonprofit organization, where do I start and how am I going to get there at the end? And what does success look like at the end? It might look like a different thing for one organization to the rest, depending on the resources, depending on capacity. So that's very much where we focused on at the moment. Our 5-year vision is we want to be a crowdfunding platform where you have the most likelihood to succeed because of the training that we provide. And then also a place for donors, strong focus on the donor market and making sure that we support nonprofit organizations with retaining their donors, almost like providing a donor retention functionality. So once we help you build up that recurring giving campaign, we then also provide support with communication and retaining those donors that you have built up through our system. Some practical things, we're also a 0% platform, so we don't take any fees from any of the campaigns. It's only the payment gateway fees, which is often also miscommunicated and misunderstood. I'm not sure about the other guys on the call, but even if we as BackaBuddy do not take anything, if a donation is through a particular type of payment portal, those payment portals in and of themselves charge fees, which need to be taken into account. What else can I say of interest? Yes, you were asking about, what kind of behavior are we seeing? I'm still seeing a strong uptake. I do see a massive need for education. because we still have a lot of nonprofit organizations coming through, setting up a campaign in a way and assuming that donors are then going to come on and fund it. So a lot of education in terms of how, and I know we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it, but what must my campaign look like? Where is my network? What is my network? What is my crowd? How can I strategically work with finding a crowd if I don't have a crowd? Some ideas that we can throw in there. I mean, these are things that we as crowdfunding platforms have been working with for years. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. So there's a lot of knowledge in the room, and I'm looking forward to hearing us all share and collaborate on different practical strategies to get those campaigns funded, be it once off or recurring. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Catherine. Michael, over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Michael and I'm from M-Changa. So M-Changa is Africa's largest online fundraising platform, and I'm happy that Catherine is here. Last year we worked closely with BackaBuddy. We are partnering with GlobalGiving. Actually, GlobalGiving are using M-Changa for their Kenyan donations. I'm very happy to meet you. So M-Changa was created in the year 2012 in Kenya, and M-Changa was created to empower individuals, communities, and organizations to raise funds conveniently, securely, and transparent using mobile technology. With M-Changa, you run everything online, and our objective was to enabling trust-based fundraising, increasing financial inclusions, offering real-time transparency. With our one of the challenge that I'm going to mention in the fundraising is the transparency that even affect the donors in trusting a platform. So M-Changa allows that when you donate, you are able to see how much has been raised in the platform. So we are able to offer real-time transparency during the fundraising. Our key services include digital fundraising tool, as I've mentioned, then mobile money integration. The people that are using M-Changa are able to receive mobile donations and even card payments. So that's enable people to receive both local and international donation for the countries that we operate in. We have automated record keeping. I'm getting an echo of my sound. Yeah, we have automated record keeping and also team-based management. Geographically, we are based in Nairobi, but we've expanded into over 12 African countries, in that even the other countries that are not in Kenya, we work there. That's why we are Africa's largest online fundraising platform. M-Changa has supported over 500,000 courses since its in conception, and we've raised millions of dollars across various courses that includes medical, school fees, funerals, community development, charity, and non-profit programs. And the platform have also served thousands of organizations, church, welfare groups, and grassroots initiatives that have used the platform. You've also asked on what do we see. I'll also say what Catherine have just said, there's need to education. Many organizations are joining crowdfunding, thinking that when they join, then money, when they set up a campaign, then money starts coming in. Someone set a campaign, then after 2 days, they ask, why am I not receiving money? So there's a very great need for education. Then there is also people asking, well, how do they get donors? People have got limited organizations or people who are creating account have got limited network. Then also some set up account and they don't tell stories. And for the success of a crowdfunding platform, storytelling is very key, as we'll be able to see that. So someone set up a page, they don't tell a story on what they do or what they have done previously. And that is something that we have noticed recently. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you, Michael. So Jerry, maybe last but not least, but please introduce your platform and tell us a little bit more about your work and the fundraising environment in Ghana or even the wider West Africa region, if possible. I think you're on mute, Jerry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. So my name is Jerry. I represent the team at Penplusbytes. We're a civic tech organization. We've been around since 2001, and our main mission was to, promote effective governance by deploying technology that enhances participation. We came onto the philanthropic scene or Giving for Change scene through one of our partners called Star Ghana Foundation, who are leading efforts to mobilize resources locally to support the activities of NGOs. And they supported us to develop the Somu platform. So Somu, so I must commend you, David. You mentioned it quite well. It's a Akan name for Let's Lend a Helping Hand, which is quite similar to our Kenyan friends, the Harambee Spirits, which is all pulled together. So the platform is actually a very low-tech, user-friendly online platform, which bears in mind, access to internet for especially, community-based organizations and NGOs, so that they'll be able to, not have to struggle to have high-speed internet to access the platform. And the main idea is to seek, or it seeks to do, is to throw light on domestic philanthropy or domestic giving, which in our environment is a bit disjointed. We're not able to tell stories out of how local giving is transforming communities. And this platform seeks to, be a place that will be able to have all of those, efforts by individuals, local-based organizations, NGOs doing in the philanthropy space to see the impact that is happening there and build trust amongst givers. And when we started off, we wanted it to be more research linked, so that not any campaign or cause is put on the platform. The idea also is that the campaigns that are happening on the platform link directly to the needs of community and also serve as an advocacy platform. So we've had campaigns that are more advocacy driven, linking fundraising to local governments to draw the attention to some of the needs of the community members and what the NGOs are doing at the local level to draw in government support to some of the things that they are doing. All this is in relation to donor fatigue and the space dwindling for seeking funds from outside and looking for ways and means that we can get local community members, individuals, Ghanaians in the diaspora to be part of community building and the work that NGOs are doing. So the object of the platform really is to be the go-to platform for NGOs in Ghana at the moment, primarily allowing NGOs interested in local resource mobilization to mount campaigns that appeal to different philanthropic individuals and entities. The big selling point of the Somu is that it receives both financial and non-financial donation. So we've had instances that people will donate their time, people donate their building for work that NGOs are doing for, say, have a local assembly meeting or town hall meeting. People donate, their facilities for it. People donate their talent. So we have, influencers who are musicians who are, through this platform are creating awareness about medical issues, educational issues, what have you. We've raised, used the platform to raise funds for courses around maternal health. We've mobilized community members to build ovens for smoking fish in rural areas, so that local women will have employment. And these are not non-financial. Of course, we had a financial donation for disaster reliefs and all of that. So in a nutshell, it's a platform that provides the advantage of mounting an online campaign to reach a global audience beyond the Ghanaian borders and increasing the chances for finding donors who believe in an NGO's cause or project. Part of the platform showcases successes chalked from previous campaigns, impact stories, and then serves as a reference point that provides options for various opportunities for philanthropists to support what the work that people are doing. In recent times, what we have seen, so we actually started doing this platform since 2001. The first couple of years, we're using it to basically research and see what works, so that at the end of the day, we don't build a platform that becomes a museum and doesn't serve the need of NGOs who are trying to raise funds. And the last couple of years, we've raised, we're still in our infancy, listening to both David and Michael and the rest of the speakers are, we are the babies in this panel. But so far, we've raised, more than $20,000 for various campaigns. And that does not even include the non-financial support of people donating cement bags, donating menstrual pads, donating their labor time and all of that. So that's what the platform is doing. Recent trends, historically, NGOs in Ghana have focused, in seeking donations and fundraising from US-based organizations, especially through USAID. With the cuts in funding, we've seen a huge interest in the Somu platform. We've actually doubled the registration of, I think we have about, beginning of this year, as at the end of last year, we had about 70 NGOs registered on the platform. At the moment, we have nearly 180 NGOs registered on the platform. The key thing we are seeing is, which Michael said, is that people put on the platform and they expect that the money will start flowing the next day. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen. Also, the issue with this platform, this is the first of its kind for NGOs in Ghana, is the issue of trust. Of course, we had to contend with, I'm sure we'll delve deeper into that during the panel discussion. We had to contend with issues of what we call 419 or fraud. Fraudsters in the space, and they don't know if they give their money to the platform, which is quite new in the scene, whether the money will go to where it's supposed to go to. So the big thing for us is building credibility and also visibility for the platform for more people to come on it. At the moment, through our partner Star Ghana, we don't take any charges from donations that go to the civil society organizations, just so that they get everything. But of course, for sustainability reasons, going forward, we have to find models that will be able to help to sustain the platform. I think in a nutshell, this is where it is. But just briefly to mention that to all our NGO partners on this webinar, that crowdfunding is the way to go. It democratizes the way you raise funds. You have options to reach out to a lot of people instead of depending on one or two donors. Also, it actually brings innovation in your fundraising because of the different strategies that you have to adopt, different tools that you have to use to sustain your courses and your projects as well. So, I mean, it is the way to go, and I think it's a cure for the current challenges that we are facing in the dwindling fundraising landscape. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Jerry. So the next two questions, I really want us to kind of dig a little bit deeper on say the positive and the negative side. So on one side, opportunities, the potential, and Rachel already alluded to say some of those considerations or issues that you need to take into consideration in starting out with crowdfunding in terms of what you want to accomplish. So why crowdfunding? And then if you've made that decision, what I say, some of those building blocks, even success stories. So maybe if Rachel, if I can turn to you and Catherine to maybe, in general terms, respond to what I've just said, but maybe you can also highlight some specific experiences of things that have worked and reasons why they have worked. And then maybe I will come to Jerry and Michael to almost the flip side, where people over or underestimate what crowdfunding can do, the mistakes that people make, the challenge that they experience. So that may be as the second question, but maybe the first question, Rachel, start with you. Again, I think what is consistent from what all of you have said is clearly this is the time, there is interest. Organizations are searching for supplementary or new funding avenues. So there's a fertile environment. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's fertile. So where do we start, or what should people take into consideration in getting started or getting better at what they're already doing?
Thank you, David. So because Catherine and I are going to do this together, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to start maybe like take a step back and ask the question, when should you do a crowdfunding campaign? Because one thing about, so one of the dangers of being in a cash short environment, and particularly with all these cuts that I'm sure many of you have experienced funding loss, is that you kind of want to run at everything and anything that could potentially bring you resources. And again, I think some of my fellow panelists have sort of alluded to the fact that crowdfunding definitely isn't a quick fix. It's not a poster project and they will come situation. And so my stepping back and asking that question of when should you start crowdfunding, it is basically an encouragement to sort of start with some kind of fundamental questions. Start from questions like, what are your current organization assets? And those assets could be people, it could be staff, it could be volunteers, ambassadors, the community. I loved Jerry's sharing about the platform that they've created in Ghana, and like the fact that it doesn't have to be about money. It is also about talent, skills, resources, donations of time and goods. And so, you know, thinking about like your assets, then thinking about what is the work you're trying to deliver. Does it need money? Does it need money, or does it need different kinds of resources? And then, you know, if you get to a place where you're like, okay, the kind of funding we need is maybe large chunks of funding, or it could be resourced through sort of a drip of funding coming in, then maybe crowdfunding is a good idea. But that is like the starting point for like your work. And then you have to think about what is needed, what are the ingredients of crowdfunding, if you like. And the ingredients of crowdfunding are kind of in the name. So you need to have a crowd, and a crowd doesn't have to be like thousands of people, but it has to be a big enough, can be a small group, a big enough group of people who are willing to begin to support your campaign. So what we found at GlobalGiving is that by setting organizations up with some of the sort of the basics of like having a page, writing compelling content and stories about your work, and then mapping your network and identifying the different kinds of people that are in your immediate network. And that literally could be, you know, somebody that visited your community. It could be a contact you have in the capital city. It could be a business owner that you know. It could be a whole variety of people, and each of them will be able to support you potentially in different ways. So this is a very active kind of fundraising, actually. In fact, it kind of takes quite a lot of planning and coordination to be successful. And the other thing I'll say, and then I'll turn to you, Catherine, and see if you want to kind of build on what I'm saying, and then happy to kind of give some examples also, is, you know, really thinking about time bound. So there are different, obviously, approaches to individuals giving. People can give one-off, and you can just keep putting out a message of, this is what we're fundraising for, please give us money, here is the link to donate. But what can be really powerful is if you frame it within a particular time frame. So if you're like, we're raising money in the next month, we're hoping to raise and set a goal, maybe it's $1,000 or equivalent, and you're looking to really mobilize people and energize people towards that shared goal. And that again is about mobilizing a crowd towards a shared outcome that they can see how their amount of funds have been contributing to that. So some different kind of points within that. I'll turn to you, Catherine, maybe, and see if you want to offer some other insights, and, you know, happy to share some examples of how that's worked as well.
Thanks so much, Rachel. And it's so nice to have other people on the call that sort of know these things, and we can talk about it together. But it's one thing I really, really want to emphasize as well is it's not the place you're coming to save your organization. It's not going to solve all of the problems that you have from a financial perspective. It's just not. And, you know, for the last 10 years, I have seen many a campaign come through to say, you know, if we don't get this money now, we will close. Sometimes they work this much of the time, but that desperation is not attractive to a donor. So if it comes with desperation along with I have no network, it's not a formula that's going to work. So what is going to work then? And we always guide the organizations to also think, what is your long-term strategy with these individuals? What is your long-term? Is crowdfunding supplementing your other ways of income? Because you're slowly trying to grow that individual base. It's going to be slow. It's going to be a lot of work. what I love most is also the shift in your mind around, I can set up a campaign and try and market it myself, or I can change my focus to look for people who are also passionate about what I do and ask them to volunteer their services by being a champion on a campaign. And we see this success over and over and over again on BackaBuddy. Small nonprofits that either have identified ambassadors or people that are passionate about their cause, and their way of assisting is setting up a campaign and dedicating their birthday or bar mitzvah or whatever it is. Those types of champion creative fundraising campaigns do really, really well with us on BackaBuddy. And I must also be completely open and transparent. I've shared this story before, so if some have heard it, is sometimes a campaign will also come in when you think it shouldn't succeed because, oh, they don't have a good website and their brand is not strong. And I've got a particular example that I'd like to share, a gentleman by the name of Headley. He's got a campaign in Malawi. And he came through and said, no, he wants to raise money for a school in Malawi. And I thought, oh, no website, no, this doesn't, people are going to go online. They can't find him anywhere. And his campaign continues to raise money to today. He's been with us for over 5 years. So articulated what the purpose is. And he also meets a lot of people through his work. And when he meets them, he's got that passion for his project. And he shares that story. They buy into the story and he asks them to donate to his campaign. So sometimes I feel like we can also use that as a bit of a crutch. Oh, I don't have much of online skill, or I don't know so much about social media. Once you've got your campaign and you've got your link and you've got your WhatsApp, it's about getting out there and sharing your story. So Headley's story often comes up, and I'm so proud that he continues to market his campaign in whatever way possible, but he's got that passion.
Thanks, Catherine. Rachel, is there perhaps similar to the Malawi experience, a specific example or experience that stands out for you that our participants may benefit from?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just going to pop in the chat. You should find this link here. So yeah, I was going to lift up a community organization in Nairobi, Kenya. And the organization is called Sheep Care Community Centre, led by a man called Luke. And I think I really was excited to share this one because it is actually a powerful example of how our partnership with M-Changa has actually enabled both international, so outside of Kenya, and Kenya fundraising to happen in a really, really seamless way. So, Michael, I'm hoping you'll also have maybe some reflections about that. But yeah, I think this example here, I mean, there are many to share, and the link I've shared actually is kind of written in a way that sort of gives you some steps as well. But what I really like about the way that Luke has worked here is he has really thought about the existing places that his crowd meet. And so very simply, his crowd is meeting in a WhatsApp group. And they're a group that has kind of come together because they support and they are part of the community. And so when he's thinking about using an opportunity to raise funding through a crowdfunding campaign, that is his ready-made crowd. And the way that he's kind of mobilizing different parts of his crowd is as Catherine shared, he's identified some of the younger members of the community, as in young adults, that sort of age, who are sort of savvy with a bit of technology, can use like video. And if you go on his page, he's got a couple of projects on GlobalGiving. You can see sort of face to camera, just shot on a mobile phone, like people in the community talking about the work, showing the people that are there, obviously where it's appropriate to do that, and talking about how funds that might be contributed are going to support their efforts. And of course, because of this link up with M-Changa, it means that Kenyans who want to make just even small contributions of like $1 can do so. And so it like gives that opportunity for you know, different ways of contributing financially. So I share that one, and happy to share more if there's time. But yeah, I'll back to you, David.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Catherine. So let's flip that over to in terms of the exact opposite, things that don't work, the challenges that people experience or the mistakes that they make. I like, Catherine, your reference to desperation is not an ingredient for success. So I think that is probably one of the pitfalls in terms of around expectations. So maybe, Michael, starting with you, some of the experience that you've or things that you've observed from an M-Changa perspective that you can share with us and that others can learn from, not to repeat or to make similar mistakes or overlook certain things that are obvious or maybe not that obvious.
Thank you so much for that. And I forgot to mention at M-Changa, we have a service fee of 4.25%. So M-Changa, we charge all the fundraisers that come in, and we charge a service fee of 4.25% of the total amount that will be raised by the account. So one of the challenges that I can mention is the trust deficit, in that the donors often don't, the donors sometimes have fear on how the money will be spent, because sometimes there is not that transparency or online credibility. So you may find donors are shying away to contribute because they are not able to see the end use of the money that will be raised. So that is really, really a challenge. Another thing is the platform selection. You find that someone is raising money, for example, in Kenya, and is picking an international platform that does not allow mobile donations that are available locally in Kenya. So this person is having higher audience in Kenya, what mobile users, but he or she have selected a platform that will not allow the local mobile donation. So that has been an issue. So you find someone now coming to M-Changa when they have failed on their first trial, saying that we did this, but it didn't work with this platform because they didn't have this mobile donations, or they don't have the mobile donation that are available locally. So that is really a big challenge that is there. Then also low digital visibility. You may find that an organization is setting up an account and they want to raise online, but they don't have many followers or the digital visibility. So that's become a big challenge. After 2 days, they come and say, we created this account, but we are not receiving money. How do we do? So that is really, really a challenge that is being experienced. And also there's the donor fatigue. If you are relying on the same donor, maybe you are doing a course and you are relying on the same donor for every time you are doing a program, there's that fatigue that most of some donors get, and then they end up giving up within the way before you accomplish your project. Also to mention is the platform fees. I've mentioned that M-Changa, we have a service fee of 4.25%. So maybe someone was raising for a charity, then once you raise that, then this money is again being deducted for the platform fees. So that is really another challenge that that is being faced. And some of these platforms are expensive. We have to admit that. And so that is also a challenge that people face when they are carrying this activity. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Michael. Jerry, some of your local experience in Ghana and beyond.
Thank you, David. So I like the points that Catherine made earlier about the desperation. So one of the key things that we've realized is people trying to be visible, raise funds, and then appearing to be desperate. Focusing more on the financial needs rather than bringing out the impact stories and the outcomes of what their fundraising is going to seek. So that's one of the key things that we've noticed. That how do we get people out of the? Of course, some of them are very desperate. They have programs that are seasoned and they are laying off staff, and they feel that this is like a go-to to solve all their problems. Others also basically put all their eggs in one basket. So what we tending to advise in our campaigners is that you have the whole spectrum of your project or your course. Which part of it can we solve with crowdfunding, and which part of it can you go out to your regular donor to so basically a combination rather than depending fully on the crowdfunding. And the key thing that we try to project is that at least if you are able to do a start of the campaign, then you can build on it and add more to it rather than coming to raise your 1 million at a go. But then you can start small and end up big with the low hanging fruits in there. Another challenge we find is that our platform allows people to create their own pages and then start their campaign. And when we visit these pages, we realize the professional presentation of their campaign is not there. So I mean, you have low quality visuals and videos, some in English, some in local language without any translation in there. There's also this lack of clear, concise objective and compelling narratives, to effectively communicate the mission that they want to achieve. Another challenge that we find is most of these NGOs come on the platform and they want to go alone, so they don't involve in influencers endorsements. They don't involve any local community, respected community heads. We normally have, FAQs, for them to adopt, but usually they just have one picture, have a one-liner on it without, giving a lot of the background information about how they are, their background information about their courses, that's all the mission or the things that they want to raise the money for. And then also issues of transparency. So what we always advise is that, whatever impact you make, give us the background story. Let the donor know that, this is how you arrived at, this impact or this achievement. All that helps, to build the donor trust, and we don't see that. So campaigns happen on the platform, funds are raised, and that is it, and then it takes our team to go back to find out their stories, because the more we tell the good stories about what is being done, the more opportunities you create for others to come and raise funds on the platform. One of the other things also is the how do we leverage on one-time donors to make them regular donors? There's no clear strategy at the moment. That's the NGOs who come on the platforms to raise funds to touch base with those who have supported them in the past, and even common things like saying thank yous and all of that is also not happening. And all of that is a way that it impedes on cultivating that community of the crowd to always be on your course and on the things that you want to do. But generally, I mean, I think the key thing is, trust. How do we, build trust, transparency, accountability, and then there's absolute need for, training around, digital marketing skills, campaign management, and even how to at the moment we are going towards AI. How can we use AI to enhance, how you message, how you develop compelling stories. How even to segment the donor landscape. One of the interesting ones that we recently used AI to do is timing for raising funds. In Ghana, we realized that people donate more during religious occasions like Easter festivals, Christmas time when people give more, and we try to tend to get people to research when it's best to come and raise funds for particular efforts. So generally this is it. The other challenge, which doesn't have to be to deal with the NGO specifically, is the digital infrastructure landscape. So there are areas where only SMS will work, and that is what you have to leverage on. Or some places that you only have to use USSD. Online payments also becomes a challenge because Ghana at the moment we don't even have access to PayPal. So even getting donations from outside our jurisdiction or from the diaspora is also a challenge. But in that, doing what we advise those who come to raise funds is work with the local banks to do direct bank transfer if that has to be the case. Use mobile money. Africa is very, very mobile, and that's one of the key things that we also have to leverage on. So I will land here, and then we'll go on to the next discussion because we are far spent on time. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Jerry, and I'm very pleased that you reference the issue of the payment systems. That's a question that I've observed quite a few times during the questions that we've received. That's almost like a separate discussion in terms of the challenges that people experience from one country to the next. But I'm glad you've just referenced it because I think on a very practical, technical level, that might be a constraint that in some way or another also impact the success or the prevalence of crowdfunding. So we're going to do one more round of questions. I'm going to encourage everyone in the meantime, if you have a specific question for any of the panelists, please pop it into chat. Emanuela will be monitoring it, and then will be helping us to raise some of those questions with our panelists. So as a last round, one of the I think it touches on many of the things that all of you have raised, but one of the kind of questions that it was very specifically articulated, but I think with huge expectations in the questions was, how do we build a crowdfunding campaign, which almost feels like a training session or a masterclass in its own right, not necessarily something that you can address with a few questions in a webinar. And maybe that is scope to do a separate event where it's really about building blocks. But again, one question can't do justice to it, but maybe as a final question to our panelists, as you reflect on that expectation, and you have, let's say, two groups of NGOs, call it, say, the newcomers to the crowdfunding space, and let's say on the other side, the mature users and people that are maybe just looking for ways to refine or improve. So maybe Rachel and Jerry, I'll start with you. For the newcomers, kind of parting advice, in terms of where to start. I think from an opportunity point of view, Rachel and Catherine have already alluded to quite a few things that people have to take into consideration, but very specifically to newcomers, people that have listened to this conversation today and tomorrow go back to the office or go and speak to the director or the fundraising director, say, hey, this is something that we should do. Where do they start and what should they be thinking of, and where can they go to for help and support? And then, Catherine and Michael, I will ask you to respond to it, say, from mature users, those that have had success, but maybe because of a changing environment or maybe because of higher demands and expectations. What are, say, some of the things for them to reflect on? So Rachel, let's start with you.
Thank you, David. Sure. So I'll just, sorry, I feel like I'm just sending out links into the world. So I've just added a link to the chat, but I think this is quite a nice place to start. And actually, I think, David, you probably, you've shared something in your intro to this question that I think is really important, which is just to start talking to your colleagues, to your kind of close community members about what crowdfunding is, how can crowdfunding help us, what does it, and so then to think about, like, what is a realistic goal, and to not be afraid to just give it a go, but with some of this guidance sort of in your mind. So setting a realistic goal in terms of amount of money you might raise. So have a look at other platforms that have similar projects to you, that are doing similar work. GlobalGiving's website is full of really interesting community-based efforts, and that'll give you some ideas. You can see on the pages like how much people have raised, how many donors they've got, and obviously that doesn't give you the full picture of how, but it at least gives you some ideas about how folks have been positioning what they do and the sorts of updates and stories they've been sharing. So just do some learning, just have some conversations. And then I think it's about just getting, even if it's just a few of you, really committed to trying something out and giving yourself a time frame to put some effort into it. So there was someone was sharing in the chat that they tried a campaign before and it hadn't worked. And that can feel really, really deflating if you try something that doesn't work. So my encouragement is, try something within a time-bound amount of time, like choose how much effort you want to put in, and then test what works, what doesn't. Try some things out, learn whether it's worth your time or not, but then see if you want to move forward from there, and rather than seeing it as a kind of didn't work. Talk to others that have done crowdfunding before. So if there are organizations you see on any of the crowdfunding platforms that are here today or others, and somebody that works at those organizations, a quick look on LinkedIn to see, do I have any connections, or from your networks, and then have a chat. What did it take for them to be successful? So I think it's a lot about just get yourself more familiar, would be how I would suggest newbies get started.
Thank you,
Jerry,
Rachel.
I'm passing to you for some reflections.
Jerry, anything that you would like to add to that?
So repeat the question again, please, David.
We're just looking for, say, some parting advice for kind of newcomers to the space. What would your recommendation be to them, having participated in today's conversation, listened to all the challenges and opportunities? Where to start? What should they be thinking of or should be doing tomorrow or as of tomorrow?
So just a quick one to add to what Rachel just said is that I mean, most of the campaigns that are mounted on our platform comes without any strategy. And the key thing for us to mention is that crowdfunding does work. I mean, we've experienced it. I mean, across Ghana, it's not only, usually you see these things in southern part of Ghana, but so far the CSOs or NGOs that are raising funds cuts across from community-based, rural-based to national-based organizations. And all of them, what runs through is that they just come, puts the campaign on the platform and then just leave it without any strategy around, setting realistic, targets, identifying, specific use for the funds. They basically come to raise funds and go on. No clear timeline or milestones. So I mean, when you come into raise or take a campaign, the key thing is that we want you to define your goals, develop the content, develop whole gamut of content ahead, so that I mean around your key messaging, even the tone of your messaging, is it going to be formal, jovial? Is it taking into context the local prevailing way of giving? Are we in Ghana? What works most is actually fundraising in churches. How do you leverage on that? Do you have a strategy on that? During festivals, local festivals, where the diaspora community comes, what is your strategy in linking up with those people and selling your ideas to them or your objectives to them? And then also building support network. So one of the things we say is that because we are quite new in the space in terms of crowdfunding, what we want is that when you start, touch base with your local community, your friends, family, your old school mates or old school groups, so that they can initial donation to build the momentum in going forward. And then whilst you start the platform, start the campaign, what we see is that nobody seeks to launch the campaign, but it's launch the campaign is one of the biggest way of gaining visibility. And launching is not only online, but then you can engage the community radio, so you can reach those who are not online, to bring them online to see what you are doing, and that we don't see, and we will really advocate or encourage people to try all avenues that works, and then while the campaign is going on, monitor conversations. So we see some of the campaign happens, and then people will ask questions, and there'll be no response. I mean, that is a no-no. Continually engage with your community who wants to know more about your courses, the campaign you're doing. What have you done in the past? Show your achievements in the past of what you've done, and so that it builds that credibility and trustworthiness. And then at the end of the day, we also don't see people actually having a proper closure to their campaign. So they reach their targets and the campaign is hanging. But there's a simple thank you to thank those who have been your supporters and your contributors, and then finally at the end of the day share your success stories. So some of the things, these are some of the things that we encourage people to take in mind, so that we avoid the pitfalls, and then also learn from what others are doing. And it's very important that if you are coming to space in the first time, you can actually partner with existing successful campaigns. I mean, we need to move away from working in silos and in a competitive environments, and collaborate and partner more. And at the end of the day, once you build your crowd, you can move off and do your own campaigns as well. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Jerry. Catherine, over to you.
Oh, I've got quite a few things, and I'm trying to almost hold myself back because I'm trying to remember what it was like 15 years ago when I knew nothing about everything, and there is so much to share. But I loved what I don't even know who said it. I don't know if it was you, Rachel. Something about talking to others and others that have had campaigns. I was chatting to somebody from the Cancer Cows, that's CHOC, which is a childhood cancer organization here in South Africa. And I was chatting to their head of events the other day, and she shared something with me, and I almost fell on the floor. I said, how can I not know that? So just continuously talking to people who are already doing it. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There have been many successful crowdfunding campaigns before. Chat to us, chat to people that have done it already. But if I was brand new, first time in this webinar, know nothing about crowdfunding, my best advice, I think, would be to also change the lens in which I look at people, to not always look at them as, are they potential donors, but are they potential crowdfunders for me? Because champions, we call them champions internally, but people who crowdfund for your organization are very particular type of personality. So instead of always looking at, is he a donor, is he a donor, is he a donor, maybe you're being short-sighted. Maybe he's not a donor. Maybe he's a champion that will set up a page on your behalf and ask all his rich friends for money so that you don't have to do it. So that's the kind of the mind shift that I would want to really encourage you if you're brand new to crowdfunding. And then if you are more experienced, like a very heavy lesson for those. I have seen thousands of campaigns raise money and goodbye. That's the end of it. Oh, well, like you were mentioning earlier as well, I think it was you, Jerry. There we go. No closure. Donors don't have the impact of their funds. You are literally throwing money in the toilet. These people have just committed. Where's the thank you? Where's the impact? Did you ask them again? So for those who have had campaigns before, I would push you and encourage you to nurture your donors and build your recurring giving base and look at that as a new strategy. Don't just forget about them. And secondly, someone also mentioned the media. You know, we also get such beautiful stories that come through, a little bit of money, and you think, oh, it's so beautiful, like surely. And we've reached a stage here in South Africa where News 24 will ping us and say, do you guys have a story actually? Do you have something nice? So if you've had some experience with crowdfunding and you've got a really powerful story, pop it to the media, send them an email. Maybe they want to pick it up. I had a beautiful one yesterday where little sausage dogs, they're a non-profit organization, looks after sausage dogs, Dachshunds is what you call them. And they pair these old dogs with elderly people. So the dog is 10 and above, 10, 12, 13 in the last years of their life. And they pair it with elderly people in old age homes and then cover all the vet bills and everything associated with the little dogs. And that's an angle. That's something a little bit different than I'm raising money for an SPCA. We need money for food. Instead of the story of you know, Catherine's granny, she just got this new dog. So yeah, that is my advice.
Thank you, Catherine. So Michael, final word to you, and then we'll do a quick round of questions.
Thank you. I'll be brief so that I don't repeat what has been said, but I just want to add on to what my fellow colleagues have mentioned. And I want to stress on build strategic partnerships. You need to partner with some organizations that are doing this or have done it before. For example, M-Changa, there's a study that we did some years back on which months do people donate. So if someone is equipped with this data, then you are able to know what time to launch your campaign, and that will really help you. And also leverage data for success, where you rely on data of people who have done it before. You can ask them, how did they do it? And that will really be able to enable you plan well as you plan to continue with your, as you plan to continue. Also, it's very key to promote trust and transparency. Catherine, I've mentioned that some people, they raise, then they go without sending the thank you note or giving that update. That's really kill trust. And they'll say that you are not transparent. You didn't come back to us to tell us this is what we did, this is what we raised, this is how it was used. So it's really, really good to promote trust and transparency even as you continue with the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to hand back to Manuela. Let's see if there's 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll ask the respondents or the panelists to take one round off, and maybe then we can wrap it up. So Manuela, back to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for such an amazing session. I think all of the things that have been shared is what I keep preaching about, I'm breaking tables about. Each time everyone comes to meet me, Ella, we started a campaign, we're not able to hit our goal. I said, what did you do before? You didn't say thank you. You didn't keep up with the donors, all of those kind of little things that matter. Thank you for stressing on that again. Thank you so much. So I'm looking right now in the question box. Someone asked, can I ask how the vetting of donors is done in crowdfunding? In Mozambique, we have to prove our funds do not come from terrorists. Do I take the questions all at once and then anyone would speak to whichever questions, or should we do it one at a time?
No, let's do say 3 or 4, and
Okay.
then I will allocate them to say the different panelists.
Okay, great. Someone from South Sudan says it has been a challenge to fundraise from here. How can we benefit from these platforms? What tools can organizations use to fully understand donor needs or to identify the audience for contributions towards specific programs? I think one other great question here is, does GlobalGiving have a presence in Ghana? Yes, I will look through for more questions, but for now, yes, this is what I have in the question box.
Okay, so Emanuela, can you maybe repeat the third question? And maybe we'll start with that one. I didn't capture everything, but it felt to me that is maybe something that everyone maybe can make a contribution to.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm pulling that up again. So one was about the vetting of donors. Yep. Yes. How is this done in crowdfunding? In Mozambique, we have to prove our funds do not come from terrorists. Do you want the other one?
The third one is the one I'm interested in.
Okay, what
so we have
tools
the vetting
can
question,
organizations...
then we have the South Sudan one, and then there was a third one.
What tools can organizations use to fully understand donor needs or to identify the audience for contribution towards specific programs?
Okay, that's probably a mouthful. So maybe we can start with that one, Rachel. A little bit of a mixed bag of different perspectives. Maybe you and Catherine take that question, and then maybe I'll ask Jerry and Michael to maybe just say something about how your platform specifically deals with the vetting issue, because I think vetting, be it what people expect of nonprofits as well as vice versa, is maybe a good issue also in the context of transparency, etc. So maybe Rachel and Catherine with that question number 3 that Emanuela just shared with us.
David, I want to just go against what you said just quickly and just throw in the quick question answer to the other question that the others are going to answer from our perspective as well. Okay. It's a struggle. It's not easy, and it actually upsets me profusely. But we've got regulation here in South Africa where we have to FICA donations that are above a certain amount. So our finance department has now started to have to FICA. I think by law we have to FICA everyone over 50. I could be wrong. I think that's the amount. But that is basically before we are taking responsibility for the donation that is coming through our platform and going on to the organization. So we have to reach out to the donor and ask the donor for FICA documentation. And it is hard. A donor does not necessarily want to share their ID and their proof of bank and proof of address with BackaBuddy. Some of them may not know who we are. Who is BackaBuddy? Why do you people want this information of mine? And I wanted to go to this particular organization. So it is a challenge. I don't have a solution yet. We are still trying to deal with it on our side, but it is required by law to FICA these donations because of the challenges that we face in terms of fraudulent donations. As a platform, we are constantly attacked by AI bots. We are constantly attacked by people testing credit cards and all kinds of things, having to up our 3D secure. So I don't have a solution for that question, but I do have just the fact that it is a challenge that we are experiencing in South Africa particularly. Rachel, do you want to tackle the donor one?
So maybe just
Sure,
before
yeah.
we go to Rachel, Rachel, I'll leave you with the last word about that question number 3. So maybe then Jerry and Michael, following on Catherine's comments about the vetting, the validation, and also kind of the regulatory challenges that platforms have to adhere to or are confronted with. Maybe just say something, maybe even if it's specific to, say, the Kenyan or the Ghanaian experience specifically. Jerry, let's start with you this time around, and maybe just from a time point of view, let's try and keep our answers brief.
Thank you, David. So from our end, the vetting actually happens on just one side, which is the NGOs. So before you come and start your campaign, we require you to upload your registration documents and do background checks in terms of what you do and what you seek to do. One level is that we make sure that the money raised does not go to support terrorist activities or support things that it doesn't necessarily state the objective of the campaign. On the other side, in terms of vetting the donors, that is not for us to do. Ghana has quite good laws around forex and money coming in, and that vetting happens at that level. We ourselves don't have the capacity to vet, which donors are donating on the platform. But then we have a list of all the big donors on the platform for anybody to transparently see who gives on the platform. And I think it's also more it's quite country specific in terms of in countries where the terrorists are interested in and what they support based on that. Beyond that, one of the key challenge for us in terms of setting up this platform is that you need to do a huge deposit at the central bank, which for NGOs like ours, we are not able to do. So we have to work through third parties, payment service providers to come in to be the middleman, for instance, and they have the resources and capacity to see where the donations are coming from because they have to abide by the laws and regulations. So I'll leave it here, David.
Thanks, Jerry. Michael, final word
Thank
on
you.
Validation or vetting?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be very brief on that. So for vetting, number one, we vet when you create up an account, we vet you by checking on the documents because it will be unfair to allow a campaign that is being done for terrorist activity to go on. Then when someone donate, then you go and ask a donor, why did you donate? But you allowed this account to be on the campaign. So we started from the time you create up the account, we do the vetting at that stage, know what you're fundraising for, how the money is going to be used, and sometimes even insists that when you are withdrawing from M-Changa, these funds go to the bank account of the organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. So last word, Rachel.
Thank you, David. I definitely don't feel like I'm going to do justice to the question because I feel like it might have been quite broad, but just to say the bit that I picked up on within the question that I thought was interesting is how do you make sure you're meeting donor needs, which I think is actually a really important thing to consider. And there are different ways you could obviously do it, but I would just say ask and test. So with people you trust. So you're wanting to find out what is resonating, what came out, what was that story good? Do you enjoy this thing? Or, what more could we do to be engaging you as a donor to understand our work? And that just dialogue even just if it's just a small group, just to sort of start build the knowledge and trust there. So ask. Over to you, David.
Thank you. Catherine, I can see you have something to add as a final word.
Well, I'm very happy with what Rachel said. Very passionate about the donors, and it actually took me quite a few years to also get to that space. I used to campaigns, charities, and then all of a sudden realized, hold on, who are the most visitors to our site? The donors. And if you look in research into donors, meaning, what do they get from us and the opportunity to give? Meaning, part of a team, part of a community, meaning in life, purpose. There's a lot of research into that, and I 100% agree with what Rachel said. Ask your donors, speak to them, and I can promise you probably 90% of them want to hear from you, and they want to be heard, and they want their opinions to be heard. So ask them what they need. So just reiterating what Rachel said in my closing statement.
Thank you so much, Catherine, Rachel, Michael, Jerry. Thank you for the richness of the experience that you shared with us. I think we can probably continue for another hour or a bit to further unpack many of these issues. Maybe there's the scope and opportunity to do something as a follow-up where maybe we go deep into one or two of the underlying issues or topics that we've touched on today. But once again, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone has received or taken something from today's discussion that can make their crowdfunding experience better, richer, and more meaningful. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Emanuela to close us up for the day. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Sorry, I wanted to ask, if you don't mind, can I just share these last two questions because they are very important and I feel like everyone is going to benefit from this. Do I have your permission, please? Thank you. Okay, so whoever asks this question, you have to thank me for this later. Okay, so the question says, about social enterprises, how can we who are in the hybrid development sector, which is not really recognized by many funders, get even seed money? What strategies work?
Okay, any takers for that?
I feel like that's a bigger question, not necessarily crowdfunding as a starting place. So it would probably be research into who funds social enterprises. And I also don't know the context within your country. Certainly in South Africa, there's a lot of interest in social enterprises and the social impact space, businesses doing good, making money. But I can't speak to the context of your country and the funders. I wouldn't think that it's not a traditional starting place for a social enterprise to come to crowdfunding. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but yeah, that's my somewhat answer.
Rachel, do you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, there are platforms, global platforms, where you don't have to be a registered nonprofit. You can be, you know, an individual even. So GoFundMe, which may or may not, I don't know how much it's penetrated into Africa right now. You know, at least in the US and in the UK and perhaps some other countries, they enable any entity or individual to raise money. And they're basically just making sure that money is flowing and doing so in a legal way. So, you know, that's like probably like this, like a very simple approach. I mean, then we've got these kind of equity-based crowdfunding that I spoke about at the beginning that may or may not be appropriate, depends on how your social business is structured. You know, it can be a for-profit, but can be with like social purpose. So I think it's a case of doing, like Catherine said, do a bit of research, have a look and see if there is like an appropriate crowdfunding platform to support social enterprises in your country or that's available regionally or internationally. And the concepts would continue to be the same. So yeah, I mean, that's a very short answer to a really good question. Sure. And I'm very supportive of this like growing social business space and hope to see more foundations, funders, funding supporting that.
Yeah. Manuela, back to you.
Thank you so much for taking that question and giving your thoughts about it. Whoever that is, you owe me a drink. All right, thank you. We have come to the end of today's webinar, but before we go, I just want to talk to you just 1 minute about some of the products and services here at Hexa Media that could benefit your organization. Like I said, when we're introducing ourselves, Hexa Media Africa helps nonprofit organizations across Africa to leverage, using technology, digital media, communications, everything. We've talked about visibility and all of that today. And so we are your partners in helping you with that. Some of the interesting products and services that we have at the moment that could be of benefit to you would be AI for NGOs course. For those of you who are getting comfortable with using AI. AI is really a great assistant and tool that can be beneficial to your organization. And we have a fully packed course that is tailored to nonprofits across Africa. And you can access this course. Someone from the team will be dropping the link in the chat. There is also the content bank for NGOs. In our time working with NGOs, we have realized that having to keep up with so many social platforms has been an issue because you have to keep churning out content. And so we put together a content bank that has over 200 content ideas, captions, graphic design templates, hashtags, everything you need to get started with putting out content on every social media platform. So if content creation is your issue, this resource is a great one for you. And website design service. It is great to have digital footprints, and you can begin to do that with your website. We have very affordable services for nonprofits. Please check us out. Visit our website, www.hexamedia.africa, and check out what resource, what service would be helpful for you at the moment. Thank you so much, everyone. We have already answered your questions. Feel free to connect with us on all social media platforms. The replays would be available. For some of you who were asking about the previous sessions, they are all available on our YouTube channel. The replays are there for the AI session, for the first session we had in February about having to choose alternative sources of funding for your organization, and this webinar too will be available all on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions beyond this, please feel free to send us an email or send us a message on any social media platform. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, it was really an amazing time. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone who was on the panel session. Jerry, everyone. Thank you so much. It was really amazing listening to you all speak. Have a wonderful day ahead, and see you all in the next NGO Power Talks webinar. Bye.
Bye, thank you.